Fortis cadre, cadre non-protest. Tell me what it means.
It means the brave man may fall, but will never yield.
Mein Schwein!
Storm of Iron is a Warhammer 40k novel in which a massive force of Iron Warriors descend upon the imperial planet of Hydra Cordatis. They lay brutal siege to its fortresses and strongholds, while being opposed by the 383rd Juran Dragoons, whose increasingly desperate defense forms the novel's backbone, or spine, if you will. First published in 2002, Storm of Iron was written by Graham McNeill, a standout 40k author. You may recognize him from such titles as Fulgrim, The Last Church, and as a contributor to several 3rd and 4th edition codices. Listen, if you spent any time perusing the Black Library, you've probably read something with his name on it. And with that, there is a lot to love about Storm of Iron. For one, it's old, and that means the dark is truly grim. Once the novel hits its stride, it feels like 1,000 or more slaves or guardsmen die every chapter. It's kind of absurd. And one scene in particular really stands out in this regard. The Iron Warriors, in their unbound cruelties, send captured members of the 383rd out ahead of their main force, using them as minesweepers. What follows is unforgettable, as the Imperial artillery opens up on their own, mistaking them for vile heretics. Alright, I think we're gonna have to read a quote here. Yeah, read this frickin' awesome quote here.
A smoking wreck lay on its side, belching black clouds just at the edge of her vision, and she began crawling towards it, over torn open corpses and crying men with no legs or arms. One man was on his knees, vainly trying to gather up his looped entrails and push them back into his ruptured belly. Another stuffed his severed arm into his jacket, besides a man vomiting thick ropes of red gore. Each few paces brought fresh horrors, and Lorana wept as the ground continued to shake.
Shortly after this doomed advance, the Imperials realize what they've done, to their immense horror. It's a super memorable scene, to say the least, and one that really captures the bleak, senseless slaughter of ground-level warfare in the grimdark future. Storm of Iron doesn't just focus on the horrors of the trenches, it also zooms all the way out to show the full, terrifying scale of a chaos-led siege. The Iron Warriors didn't just bring legionaries, they arrived with thousands of slaves, hundreds of war machines, dreadnoughts, and even a detachment of the Legio Mortis. And leading these Chaos Titans is none other than the Dies Irae, an Emperor-class Titan, and one of the most infamous god machines in all of Warhammer 40k. Now, this doesn't leave the defenders of Hydra Cordatis completely outmatched, though. You see, they have a demi-legion from the Legio Ignatum to aid in their defense. And this additional firepower at least gives them a fighting chance in this conflict. With this, Storm of Iron does justice to the sheer scale and psychological weight of Titans. You know, they aren't just big mechs. They have a tangible hold on the minds of those they're fighting and those fighting with them. And yet, for all the big machines and the massive death tolls, it is the individuals who carry any story. And it's here where I hit a minor gripe. There are a lot of them. Characters, that is. If you're looking for a tightly focused, character-driven narrative, this may not be the book for you. Listen, while the main perspectives, particularly those of Guardsman Hawk and Iron Warrior Hanzu, are given enough depth to follow, most of the supporting cast are very standard archetypes. You know, no one really stood out as especially unique or memorable. Now, that's not to say that these characters are poorly written. In fact, I found several of them to be quite enjoyable in their roles. Take Kroger, for example. He's one of the Iron Warrior's captains, who's just a complete bastard from start to finish. He begins the novel as a violent brute and only descends further as Khorne's influence over him grows. It's a very familiar arc in 40k fiction, but I find it's executed well enough here. That said, the wide cast of this novel does serve a purpose, that being we get to see the siege from multiple angles, and that broad perspective really gives the story more weight, because, well, that's ultimately what the book is about, a siege in the grimdark future. It isn't really any one character's story, it's the story of Hydra Cordatus' fall. And the contrast between the Imperium and Chaos is especially well executed in all of this. The officers of the 383rd express genuine sorrow as they watch their men die by the thousands, while with Chaos, loss is treated with cold detachment. There's only grief when power is lost, titans crippled, or artillery shattered. Human lives for them are merely currency. And now for a complete tonal shift. In the merry old year of 2002, some of the modern conventions of Warhammer fiction hadn't quite crystallized. First off, no recaf. The characters drink caffeine. That may not sound like much, but if you spend any time with a certain hero of the Imperium and his obsession with hot beverages, it's noticeable. Then there's the matter of the howitzers. I don't think I've ever seen the word howitzer used so frequently in a 40k novel. Demon howitzers included. It may just be a product of earlier writing styles, or maybe the Iron Warriors are really showing their secret obsession with war games. That is canon, by the way. Oh yeah, and the cursing. There were some that were completely new to me, and I adored them.
Great balls of the saints!
Huh? Oh, Khorne, see! Ah!
The Emperor damned Major Tedeschi's soul to the warp!
But not everything that was odd was charming. One detail that particularly bothered me was the description of the Iron Warriors themselves. First off, they're described multiple times as scrambling. That's a descriptor that should never be applied to a Space Marine, Chaos or otherwise. Listen, Astartes move with purpose, grace, or brutal force. They never scramble. And then there's the Iron Warriors' relationship with Chaos. They come off here as fully corrupted, demon-worshipping, mutation-embracing Chaos cultists. They don't quite square with their usual depiction. Traditionally, they're more like the Night Lords, bitter, pragmatic, and disdainful of the Chaos gods, even if they do sometimes use their power. The Iron Warriors are the guys who supposedly cut off their mutations and scorn gifts from the Chaos gods. You know what? Maybe this Iron Warriors warband is just different. After all, everyone is unique. Or maybe this is just early 2000s lore that hadn't quite nailed down their identity yet. In any case, their portrayal felt a little off. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments. Because, hey, maybe I got something wrong here. Well, alright, that covers the broad spine of this novel. Let's dive into spoiler territory. The first thing I want to discuss is one of the novel's high points, that being a daring raid by the 383rd into the Chaos-held trenches, blowing up a massive battery of demon howitzers. It's a chaotic sequence. And then it kicks it into the warp when the Imperial Fists suddenly show up. Oh yeah, their entrance really shifts the tide of the battle in the Imperium's favor as they cut through swaths of cultists and deploy their librarian to weaken the demonic presence. But as the story progresses, the Fists start to feel more like moral support rather than meaningful contributors. Sure, they get some standout moments, like almost killing a Chaos champion by drowning him in a tide of shit mixed with hypertoxins. I'm not joking. But ultimately, they die just as fast as the guardsmen, and with about as much emotional weight. Brother Captain Ashara, the leader of this force, is a perfect example of this. He's stoic, noble, and completely forgettable. He's a textbook Space Marine captain, ideal by the Imperium standards. But he's as dull as a grox. And Space Marines like him are why people are tired of Loyalist Marines. They're too often written as archetypes rather than actual characters. Chaos Space Marines, on the other hand, They're messy, in all meanings of that word. They're driven by internal contradictions, personal vendettas, and often complex and debased ideologies. And that complexity makes them infinitely more compelling to read about. Because ultimately, in a way, they're more human. Alright, I'll admit it now. I really wanted Chaos to win. Partly because I'm biased, mostly because the Warpsmith is really friggin' cool. He's a Chaos Space Marine warlord on the brink of demonhood, and his slow transformation is one of the best parts of the novel. His presence alone is enough to make his battle-hardened captains nauseous, and to make baseline humans pass out. As the story progresses, his form becomes increasingly unstable, more monstrous and more terrifying. The Warpsmith knows the stakes of this battle. If he fails to seize the gene seed quickly, that's what's on the planet by the way, he won't just die. He'll be turned into a gibbering chaos spawn. No glory, no power, just eternal madness. And that pressure builds throughout the novel. All the while, the Warpsmith never steps onto the battlefield. Until the final act. And when he does, oh boy, you not only feel the urgency, but his power. The Iron Warriors' last assault on the Gene Seed Vaults is phenomenal. They tear through the Imperial fists with contemptuous ease, butcher the panicked guardsmen, and trample over the defenders who are desperately trying to destroy the Gene Seed before it can be taken. And with this, I really expected the Imperials to pull off some last-second heroics and ultimately win the day. I actually kind of wanted them to. A little bit. But they don't. The Iron Warriors win. They clear out the vaults, take slaves, and escape. No moral victory, no redemptive last stand, just undeniable triumph for the forces of chaos. I didn't see it coming at all, and it was awesome. Chaos wins, and it is highly satisfying. So, my final thoughts. Storm of Iron is an high art, but let's be real, many novels aren't. What it is? It's fun, and unapologetically grimdark. If you're looking for a short 40k story that delivers large-scale carnage, demon howitzers, and a rare appearance from the Iron Warriors, this book delivers. It is fast-paced, heavy on atmosphere, and doesn't overstay its welcome. The thing is, finding a physical copy, especially with this awesome cover, might be a little tricky. But let's just say the, warp provides, if you know how to entreat it. But hey, who cares about my opinion? Let's see the real verdict.
Magic 8 Ball. Do you recommend Storm of Iron by Graham McNeill?